Hello, and on this week's pod, we discuss and victory for the under-18s, losses for the rags and the senior section, and we try to work out how Jockey is going to get something out of this rambling shit show we call the Welsh national team. Hope you enjoy. Hello, and welcome to another edition of the Cardiff Central Rugby podcast. I am back after basically downright refusing to talk about that Italy game again. So I am joined by the two people who actually love rugby enough to talk about that game, Dan and Fraser. How are we doing, gentlemen?
All good.
Yeah, not bad, thank you.
Have you emotionally recovered, ready for Ireland week?
Got the jockey bounce now, so we're fine.
Yeah, I feel pretty good actually, surprisingly. Yeah.
Excellent stuff. So we normally start off with news. There's no real news. It's just rumours. Well, currently officially rumours until they've been announced by clubs. But so we've heard that Thomas Young and Seb Davis, along with Tinas De Beer, are all signing for the Dragons. I'll be honest. We know we've got Basham coming in without a much needed second row and another 10 coming in. I suppose we've got Ewan Lloyd. I'm starting to feel we're a bit lightweight there, more so than normal in the pack. How are we both feeling about letting go of some of these players?
Yeah, I think personally, well, obviously Thomas Young has got a sad move. I think he's still a brilliant player, but he seems to not be playing that much this season. I don't know if it's injuries or just the fact that he decided already to go, so we didn't want to play him that much. But I think we discussed him going to France, which would have been. I would have preferred that for him to like have a summer in Toulon or something like that instead of Newport. But yeah, it's a bit of a disappointment. But I think I'll back with Basham coming in, like you said, that's not too bad. It's not really like for like, but I think we have good back row cover. But yeah, Seb Davis going, obviously that leaves us a little light in the second row. But I imagine that I trust in Cardiff to have plans afoot or signings afoot. I don't know. Might be silly to think that, but and then to be it's a bit of a surprise that he's going, because I think he was great last season to just like come in from South Africa and just kind of really played well. I was impressed by everything he did last season, really. And obviously he's had the injuries this one, so he hasn't had that many opportunities as Sheedy's come in. But I think he's more than capable deputy to Sheedy when he has played this season. And yeah, Ewan Lloyd coming in, a very different type of player. So yeah, it's a bit disappointing. And I would hope that maybe a 10, either maybe Harry Wild's going to be put into the first team a little bit. I don't know. Or again, it would be good to sign someone, because you're right. We feels a bit lightweight getting rid of those players, and yeah, particularly in De Beer and Thomas Young, I rate them quite highly. So it's a shame to see them go. I like Seb Davis, but I'm not as distraught about that, I suppose.
Yeah, I think like rugby wise, I think Fraser's bang on. Like particularly Young, been one of our best players for like 3-4 years now, however long he's been back. Like I think if you always over that time, and even now, if you're picking the strongest Cardiff 15, you're picking Thomas Young at 7. Like there's no question about that. But I think most of these decisions, particularly Young and De Beer, are framed as business. Have to be framed as business decisions a bit more. And the reporting around Young is that he signed a 3-year deal at the Dragons. He's going to turn 33 towards the back end of this season, and giving a 3-year deal to a 32-year-old is inherently risky. Like if you go back to Arsene Wenger's Arsenal, their policy used to be that anybody over 30 only got a 1-year deal. So and obviously rugby is a little bit more attritional than Arsene Wenger's Arsenal. So I think the club are right not to match that deal, and I don't begrudge Young taking that deal if that is what is on the table. Like you're not going to get many clubs offering you a 3-year deal at 33. It secures your future, possibly the rest of his career, really. Young families who doesn't have to move them either. And then it's the suggestion is that Dragons have offered more money to Seb than we are offering, and I think that's probably fair in that he goes there as a starter. Really, I think him and Ben Carter will be their first choice locks, whereas with us, obviously, he's slipped down the pecking order a little bit behind McNally and Teddy Williams there. So it doesn't make sense for us to be overpaying for a third choice lock when hopefully, as Fraser said, we can be going into the market and picking up somebody to come in there, potentially like a non-Welsh qualified guy to come in and do what McNally's done, but maybe be a bit younger to give us a few extra years of playing time. And then to be I think we all love him. I don't think you find a Cardiff fan that doesn't really love him after last season, but the sort of decision there, I think, is, do you want a non-Welsh qualified spot on a, like, what realistically now is second choice 10? Johan Lloyd was available, you bring him in, you can use that non-Welsh qualified spot on that second row replacement then, or on a tight head. So it's, yeah, like sort of just straight up rugby wise disappointing, but that's like continually a sad reflection of where we are as well, in terms of not much money and not much not able to carry a massive squad anymore. You just have to be really smart in the decisions you're making, and I think it could turn out in a couple of years that they weren't. Thomas Young could play 50 times the Dragons in the next 3 years, and we kind of look stupid. But in terms of the information that you've got available now, I think Cardiff have probably made 3 correct decisions there.
Yeah, I think I agree. Based on the sort of the rugby business sense, not emotional sense, definitely makes more sense. Tickler said, one thing they have was mentioned on Dragon's Lair is that Thomas Young's on significantly worse terms on his third year of his contract, so they're going to drop. So basically, he's going to have 2 good years and then drop the third year. So I think they're planning for that 2-year drop. Yeah, other than that, I don't think there's any other Cardiff news. You guys covered Brayley, and obviously the big news of the headman heading up to Wales, which we'll get into in a bit. Before that, bit of under 18s and Rags news. So the under 18s beat the much fancied Scarlets under 18s team at Parker Scarlets, 43-26. Tries from Ewan Leshen, Ewan Penry, Gabe Williams, Ewan Dacey, Rhys Cummings, and Tom Howe. Few very familiar names there. Any relations that we should be aware of, Dan?
No, I don't think any of them were relations, but Tom Howe is one of the players that Josh Turnbull name checked when he came on the pod in the summer as somebody to keep an eye out for. Hooker, who's at Glantav and still under 17. He was playing for the under 18s last year as an under 16. Is still in his first year under 18s now, and I watched him the first game of the season. There was a Glantav Rags double header, and even despite being first year under 18, he is massive in comparison to some of these lads. Like, he's a big old boy. So yeah, he's obviously they've spotted him early and signed him up, and hopefully we can keep hold of him and bring him through, because he's obviously a talented player in a position where we're always looking for talented players as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And anyone who's interested in this game, but that does mean we're up against Ospreys at the final at Cap on Sunday at 3:30 kickoff. Sunday, which I can't remember what date Sunday will be, but it'll be Sunday. This Sunday, hopefully everything will be out of date if you listen much past Friday anyway.
There was something on the WRU website ahead of the semi-finals this weekend that advertised that the finals were going to take place on Tuesday, the 31st of February. No, not sure when they thought that was going on.
That definitely feels like a placeholder date where you've not really thought through. Dan, do you want to just give us a quick update on the Rags? I believe they lost on the weekend to Bridgend in the No One Gives a Shit Cup.
Yeah, in the very much Cardiff have given up on the Super Rugby Gymru Cup section of the podcast. They lost 27-19 to Bridgend at the Brewery Field. Our tries from a penalty try from a maul, Craig Hudd, and Lloyd Lucas, who will probably be turning out for Cardiff under 18 this weekend at 10. But he's been with the Rags for the last couple of weeks. He's scored his first try on his first start for the club, so it's good to see young lads stepping up, even a bit prematurely. But yeah, there was a whole host of changes from the Rags team that beat RGC the week before. Is an entirely new back line and a bunch of changes in the pack as well. Very much a case of we've given up on this and we're just going to give opportunities to a couple of different faces in the squad. So they've got a week off now, and then their final cup game is against Aberavon at home a week Saturday, 2:30 kickoff before back into proper Super Rugby Cymru competition at the end of March. So.
Excellent stuff. Before we move on to the seniors, just want to ask, if you are enjoying this pod, please leave a review. Also, like the video on YouTube, leave us a lovely comment. Sometimes I check to see if there's anything worth reading. Normally there isn't. But it does help the engagement to spread the pod. You can also follow us on Facebook, on X, and on Blue Sky. The links will be sort of posted out with the pod. Please do share with a friend, because it's one of the fastest ways of growing an audio pod. And after that shameless plug, we will go into Cardiff's defeat 24-19 in Connacht Part 2. Gentlemen, so a game where we were very much not in the game in the first half, slightly less in the game after about 10 minutes of the second half, and then all of a sudden we were right back in the game before falling away in the last try. Dan, I know you've got words to say about the woman in the middle. We'll get to that at the end. But just thinking on the things that Cardiff could help themselves, what do we think A, went right, and B, what went wrong? Do you think, Fraser, do you want to start with this one?
Yeah, I'll start with what went wrong because it's easier to discuss that. But I think it was really just silly errors, like coach killers. When we got back to, I think it was 19 all at one point, and I believe we dropped the restart. I think there was 2 occasions where we fumbled the restart or didn't regather from a kickoff, and then I think Sheedy kicked a restart out on the out of touch, which was just really frustrating and stupid things to do, and obviously give possession back to Connacht. And Connacht had, obviously in the first half they dominated with possession, and then, to be fair, they had quite a lot of possession in the second half as well. But I think it was just silly errors really from individuals that just gave Connacht the ball back, and they were able to just kind of grind out the victory. Obviously, there were some questions around the refereeing, but even so, I think this was quite a frustrating game. I was more disappointed about. I was surprised that we got within as close as we did, because I felt we played. I was very disappointed in how we actually played. So to come within 5 points, is I was happy enough based on how we came across in the match. But it's just frustrating that we put stuff together for 10, 15 minutes, called those tries, and then just kind of gave momentum back to Connacht, and for the rest of the game just kind of didn't quite follow through with opportunities or take them. So that's some of the issues that I kind of came across.
Yeah, I thought we were really rusty, which I don't like, in the same way that go into Galway and we seem to be surprised by the wind every year. But we also seem to be surprised at how rusty we are every time there's like a couple of weeks off for the international break. It's like we have these weeks off all the time. Every season there's a break in the season here. And then we come back and we didn't start very well because we were a bit rusty. Well, I don't know, change showing up then. Or change your game plan so it doesn't rely on you being so rusty. That first half, we looked shocked by the wind. We were trying to kick to compete into it and looking surprised when it got blown back in our faces. And then decided, okay, right, we can't kick to compete, so we'll keep the ball in hand. And we're trying these elaborate backs moves where the wind was still blowing the ball when we're trying to throw these long passes, and we're rusty because we haven't played for a few weeks as well. You've got, Beetham had to come on early. You've got Roy Jennings there. You've got Callum Sheedy there. You've got Johan Mulder and Cam Winnett. Drive the ball low and into the corners and make Connacht run it back from quite far away. You're going to have to do a bit of defending. You've got the wind into your face, but at least make it more difficult than constantly kicking it and then conceding possession inside your own half or making handling errors inside your own half. It just feels ridiculous that we're saying that we always say the same things in this, because we always seem to play Connacht at this time of the season as well. I feel like, just anecdotally, so we go to Connacht and then go, oh, a bit surprised how windy and rusty it was. How many times can you do that before you sort of just give up and don't even bother going over there, I suppose. But there was plenty of good fights. There was good stuff there. I thought attacking shape-wise, second half, once we did get it going a bit, we looked really good. We caused Connacht a lot of problems with ball in hand. A couple of players in particular put in some good individual performances. I thought Johan Mulder was very good again from the base once he sort of. Now, I don't blame him so much for the kicking stuff because I imagine coming from South Africa, he's probably never seen anything like Galway in February before. But I blame more than the coaches and the senior players. Probably should have tapped him on the shoulder and went, "Oh, just so you know, mate, it's going to blow an absolute gale here." But yeah, I thought he was really good, like from the base, and made a bunch of tackles as well. Was everywhere defensively.
He's good on the wing as well, actually.
Yes,
When
he was.
he's got pace. He's more rapid than I thought he was.
He's that little step back inside that leads to Brayley's try. You know, there's no try there without that left foot step and a couple of extra meters that he made. So it's just really smart play. Lilo's class again. Thought he was really good. Lawrence and McNally got through loads of work. Reece Barrett, scrummaging wise, you kind of forget that he's 22 and only in one of his first couple of games out there. Really, really mature performance from him. He's learnt very quickly on the job, to be fair to him. And then I saw there was a couple of comments about the wing play and stuff. There was the pitfalls of a 6-2 there, wasn't it? Losing Harry Millard to a head injury, which I've watched the first 3 minutes of the game back. I've absolutely no idea where he picks up his head injury at all. I can't see any collision with his head, but
the wind knocks his neck back a little bit.
He's like, first game back and I'm here. I can't be asked. I'm going to take a head injury here. But yeah, losing his pace was massive, I think, because you ended up with Beetham and Hamer Webb on the wings, who Hamer Webb's got good top speed, but isn't necessarily sort of over the first 5 yards rapid kind of guy. But I thought he grew into the game. Second half, he looked pretty good coming off that right wing. And yeah, just generally, frustrating, I think, that Connacht weren't very good. Like that's the real frustrating thing, is that we conceded 2 like relatively easy tries in the second half. Weren't clinical enough when we did get chances then in the second half, and just those key moments again. I will say, I'm not going to like dwell on the referee or anything. I think everybody saw that last minute decision and all that, but my main question, having watched the game back, is you mentioned about the second when we got to 19-all and we lost that kickoff. I don't think Thornton touches that ball at all. It's given as a knock on, but I don't think a Cardiff player touches that ball at all. And
even if he did, it's not a knock on for sure.
Yeah, so I thought that was probably even more an annoying decision than that last minute decision, because when you're leaving it to the last minute, you should have got it sorted by then. But if we get the scrum there and get the chance to go back up the pitch, then that makes those last few minutes very different indeed. And obviously, Connacht don't score the go-ahead try from kicking it to the corner and stuff. But the penalties that we did concede to let them go into the corner, then eventually sort of the late hit by Donnell and Thomas Young stepping across. Yeah, that's ill-disciplined stuff. You don't need to do that. We were causing them enough problems defensively so that they were coughing the ball up plenty. We didn't need to go and make these desperation tackles or jackals or turnovers. Just stay in your shape and let the game come to you, really. But yeah. Lots of frustration, a couple of good things. My main positive, though, to finish on, is that with our proper team back, like there's absolutely no reason we can't go to Galway and get a result in that Challenge Cup game in a few weeks if we can keep fingers crossed for injuries and people coming back to fitness and decent form. Yeah, they get, Beeler, Mackie, Hansen, but I reckon if you go through our team there, we're maybe 50% of our first choice there, if that, of that 15 that went out on the weekend. So yeah, that's my positive to finish on.
So a couple of things. I'll go through some bits that I've pointed out. So we asked for our 3-word reactions. Big T, Tony, he actually preempted this with mentally weak again. Other 3-word reactions were playing the 9 from Ben Bryan, inaccuracy, errors, composure from Rob Williams, huge opportunity wasted, Morgan D, poor game managers, Stephen Grant, a nice team from Rob Hill. Friend of the pod, Andrew Ford, awful game management. Rich Jones, need outside half. Then over on to Blue Sky, we had Ospreys win that from maybe next season, who also went with big chance missed. And then anyone but Sheedy. There's a bit of a theme going here, guys. I don't know if you picked on it. Another person posted an essay, so sorry, that doesn't count. It's 3 words, count. Learn to count. Obviously, big thing there, game management, which I think we've alluded to, maybe not necessarily playing the conditions very well. 2 was Sheedy, which actually, I don't think he actually had that bad a game.
I
I don't think
right,
he's brilliant, but I don't think he was actually as bad as some people are making out. So a couple of things. So both teams were pretty shit. So both teams were so Connacht had like 1.8 points per entry, and we had 1.9 points per entry, which neither is great. Let's be honest. But like, no, we're not arguing over who's going to be getting home semi-finals or anything with those sorts of stats. Interesting, Master of None. So the Connacht fan podcast, I was listening to that in the car on the way home. They came up with a very interesting point of like saying, well, we have to call this out because we've called out when the referee's gone against Connacht. They think there should be a penalty against them in that last thing. That's by the by. I do agree. I think with that first try after half time, I mean that was the one with the maul that took forever to get moving, which I said I think I was more annoyed at that point because we had good possession. We made use of the wind, pinned Connacht back, and then we were a bit too frantic with our passing to try and get out wide before we actually made sure we had the numbers out wide to get there. So the ball gets turned over pretty cheaply. And then we give up an offside penalty. Then we give up another penalty of that, and then we're in the corner. And is that kind of like, well, we buggered ourselves here? We've made it easy for Connacht to march those 80 metres when really what we needed to do was to force them to try and come up with a play. Because actually, we were making more ground than them in carries on average as well. So that was something that frustrated me a bit. As the group chat showed with me, just the amount of times I put FFS in there. So, something great. One thing I do want to pick up because if we did moment of the week on the rap pod, it would have been mine, and that was the Ray Lilo try. Purely because it was just nice to see some really good just something that seems so obvious, but no one does it. So when we saw it, that was with clearly a plan to do a tap and go, crash it up first phase. I think Evan Lloyd crashes it up. And then Mulder comes to the right, calls all the forwards around to the left-hand side, then wings the ball out right, and Radio goes under the posts. I'm just like, it's one of those. Obviously, do that, but why has no one ever done that? Like, I've never seen anyone do that on a tap and go. But what a move! Problem is, it will never work again now.
Yeah, it's like that Simpsons clip where if he's got the belts and it's pointing one way and he goes the other way. It's that kind of, it's quite like an obvious deception, but yeah, it works brilliantly. And that line by Lilo is just classic. That's what he does. It was a good try.
Right, anyway, so unless anyone has any other points for that game?
I think so.
Nope. Right, so obviously there's no URC action for Cardiff this week, so we're instead going to be playing the Irish national team. Wales are going to be playing the Irish national team. So, Jockey's first game in charge. What do we think we're going to see from this? We can go a little bit into pick it squad. We won't pick a squad as such, but how do you think Jockey's going to approach this? Is this going to be crammed full as many Cardiff and ex-Cardiff players as possible? Or is he going to sort of just try and build some team, and it's going to be more just around the vibes?
I was way off last week. I think I was not advocating, but I was saying not to bring anyone in and leave like Ben Thomas at 10. I was wrong on that. That was poor thinking. But I do like the bringing in Jared Evans, Anscombe, and Llewellyn. It does seem like he's gonna just go for like a full Cardiff backline minus 1 or 2, and I'd advocate for that. I'd like to see like Jared Evans at 10 and Thomas Williams, and then you've got Ben Thomas and Llewellyn, and you've got Anscombe on the bench maybe to come on. We can play fullback or something. But yeah, I reckon that Jockey's going to try and go for like plays that have already had. He knows those players, they know him, and they probably have a base of knowledge from what he's previously done with them. So why not utilize those players who've got that experience and have been with him before and play that kind of Cardiff style? And then you can the vibes are going to be there from Sherrett anyway with his just the way he comes across with the team. So yeah, I think especially in the back line, that's the problem. That has been a problem. Our attack's been rubbish. So just give it a go the Cardiff way. You've got most of the players in the back line. I'm sure whoever is the extra, like Tommy Rogers or something, can pick up, what's going on and see what happens. I think I'm quite excited to see how it works, and I'd like to see Jared Evans get a game again. I think I remember he had a warm-up match against Ireland a couple of years ago, and I think it was like his tester, and he was pretty poor in that. I think he kind of folded under the pressure, but I still have belief that he's got the capacity to be a brilliant international player, and I hope why not give him that chance? But I don't know, what guys do you think about what Jockey should do, what it's going to do?
He's not going to be able to like work wonders in a week. But I think the tens thing is interesting. I wonder if calling Jared and Anscombe in is as much for training as anything. In that one of them will almost certainly start at 10, I'd have thought. But what you've got there then is two tens that don't need to be coached in Jockey's ways. They know exactly how he wants to attack, and so you can run 15 against 15 drills with two tens that know exactly what he wants to do. So I think I agree the backline will look quite different. I'd have thought he brings one of them in to start. He moves Ben to 12. He starts Llewellyn at 13. I've seen Anscombe fullback mentioned a couple of times. People, the old Bilbao stuff and getting the band back together and all that sort of thing. But I have to say, I think it would be a hell of a risk to play Anscombe at fullback these days at test level, because I just don't think he's got the legs after all the injuries and stuff now. But yeah, I could certainly see. I'd be interested in like if he goes proper balls to the wall and picks Jared or Dan Edwards at 10. Um, with Ben at 12 and then Anscombe on the bench as maybe an experienced hand if needed. Obviously, Jared, like everyone knows his quality when he goes to the line and can sort of pick apart a defence with ball in hand. But there is the obvious weakness then of he hasn't got great kicking length. His tactical kicking game was never like top tier. But if you've got Ben there right next to you who does have a better boot, then does that take some of that pressure off him? So yeah, I'll be interested to see exactly who wears 10. It's probably this if it's Anscombe, it's a little bit more cautious. It's saying we're not going to fix things overnight. If it's Jared, it's just fuck it, let's go for it. Let's see how well we can play. But I think the most interesting thing, or the thing I'll be looking at the most is how much he can get the forwards moving that ball a bit. It's just been so blunt with those forward pods, just trucking it up. No, very little moving the ball from the point of contact, very little deception amongst those forwards. If he even like puts like 10% of what we see at Cardiff in play, then like that'll be something beyond the dullness of Gatland and Howley. So yeah, I think that'll be his main focus this week, is getting the forwards to find ways of laying the platform, and then the backs will maybe be a bit more unstructured, where you can just say to them, look, roughly what I want. We've got these Cardiff boys in. You're all talented players. There's no doubt that there's talent in that back line. They just need the platform to demonstrate it, and so far they've played exclusively off back football. So yeah, if he can get the forwards just a couple of times to move the ball from the point of contact, give us some front football. You don't have to make yards. Just literally a quick ruck that doesn't involve running backwards to it would be absolutely great. So yeah, that's my main hope for the weekend and for the next few weeks, is that the forwards can be upskilled suitably. And I don't think it's again. You've got good players in there: Wainwright, Morgan, Teddy Williams. Elliot D's got good hands. Gareth Thomas has got good hands. They're good rugby players. They just need to have the shackles taken off them, basically, to use a phrase which I think has been mentioned on pretty much every podcast when talking about Wales over the last week.
No, I meant to say there was going to be a fine for anyone who said take the shackles off. I mean, for me, I think one of the most telling things is he instantly called up T and Reese Thomas. I know he's worked. They've worked together, so they know roughly how they want to play. But I do think it does say something that he's specifically in as a forward skills coach, where to me, just basically says, if I had the power to get rid of Humph, I would.
Yeah.
Because
I wonder how much
I've spent far too much of the last 4 or 5 years moaning about his forward coaching.
The one thing I wonder with T. Reece Thomas a bit as well is that, like, obviously he's a hooker and there's the direct comparisons with Humphreys there. But the other aspect I wonder if he might work on a bit with T. Reece Thomas is the jackal. And like, it's not going to be so easy this weekend, because we know Ireland have perfected the art of flying off your feet but somehow not getting picked up for it. But if they can get a few turnovers, like this Welsh side on counter attack should be really good. Like there's so much pace and cutting edge in that back line. You get Thomas Williams running an open play on turnover ball, he could do anything. He can produce anything. So I think a lot of the focus was rightly on the line out all of a sudden. Then with T. Reece Thomas coming in, obviously he'll be an excellent line out coach as a former hooker. But I wonder if there was a little bit of jackal and breakdown skills in there as well, just to see what we can get in those areas.
That was my impression. My impression was he was coming in to do the sort of the jackal contact work and also for like basically improving that pod structure and the interplay.
Mm.
But actually, to be honest, I mean, can you really get worse than their line out? But it does just seem like it's like, you know, we told Howley to fuck off. Unfortunately, now it means he's probably going to try and interfere with the under-20s, which just seems like a disaster waiting to happen. Thankfully, Bowen looks like a sort of player who will ignore coaching if he thinks it's stupid. I mean, for me, I kind of just I almost feel like what Jockey's going to bring in is just a couple of like set plays. Just a couple of like little just starter plays to go off and basically, because then he doesn't have to worry about the forwards too much. Just basically win the ball, and then you use a backline that he knows can sort of do the job, and that, you know, you maybe have a Tom Rogers, whether he's stepping in at 15 or the wing. You know, it's a very simple role for the winger there, or the fullback. You know, it's usually coming in making that pass, and a lot of the hard work's done by the shape of 10 and 12. I'll be interested to see if he moves Adams to the right wing, because he does like him as that sort of power winger. But then I wouldn't know who would be his sort of like pace guy, because it's something we've talked about before on the pod. How Jockey looks set at the backfield. I don't know who necessarily would be your quick guy.
Yeah, Murray was my thought, but I think the ideal backline is Adams right wing, which we said before we didn't like him on the right wing for Wales under Gatland, but I think he works better in that right wing role for Jockey, in that it's not so physical. It's more about your deceptive running lines there and popping up and trying to make use of like a weak shoulder, whereas Gatland's right wing was just basically another crash ball 12, actually, the way they came across the pitch. But yeah, Murray, Murray on the left
winger, it's more having the physicality to get through tackles and so, and he is by far one of our best defensive back three players.
And then Murray left wing, he was great there in the autumn, I thought. I'd be happy to see him back there. And then I know they played Murray at fullback against Italy. I think that was probably a little bit more though, just because Liam's dropout was quite late and Rogers would have run on the wing all week. But I think Rogers, if I was a Scarlets fan, I'd be asking them to play Rogers at 15 a lot more than they do. I think he is a really good fullback, and he doesn't get the minutes there, perhaps because he's also one of their best wingers as well. And it's that age-old, you just look at who's the best second choice there. But yeah, I think he's got all the qualities to be a real top-level fullback.
I think the thing with Tom Rogers is he's a better winger than Johan Nicholas is.
Yeah.
I think that's even with Johan Lloyd. So I think that's sort of what swings it there.
Hopefully with
similar to how we used to have Anscombe at 15 because Jared was a better 10 than Matthew Morgan was 15. So I think let's be clear. I know Island Camp have just announced that there's going to be no Caelan Doris, no Tyke Furlong, Kel Surprise. And who else was it out?
There's the hooker that isn't Sheehan.
Yeah, Kelleher. So.
Oh no, they're gonna have to start Sheehan. Oh, my heart bleeds for them.
Oh no! Oh no!
How will they cope?
How will they do that? And they'll probably have some other Leinstermen on the bench. Yeah, I mean, despite that, oh no, we've lost Caelan Doris, our captain. Well, that means you're gonna have Jack Conan, who is a Lion. I mean, even with them, I've got a feeling it's going to be pretty ugly. So I think it's definitely. So I think the only way Wales come out of this with anything really is just showing something. It doesn't even have to be much. Even if balls aren't quite going to hand, I think the important thing for Wales here is we've got to see what's trying to be done.
They just score a few tries, I think. I think that would be
that would be ideal. But I mean, if I could see how they would score tries, that would be a start. If they do a nice move and then the pass the winger goes a bit awry because the timing isn't quite there.
Yeah, making the breaks, making the line breaks and not like finishing it off or not quite going to hand. Yeah. I'd like to see like a 47-28 loss I'd genuinely be happy with. Getting absolutely tonked 47 points is not good. But if you get 28
If we
points, a
get a
couple
try
of
bonus
tries,
point, that would be great.
yeah,
Because
that'd be really
actually,
good
it's a very
fun.
hard team to score try bonus points against.
Yeah, just a bit. I think you just want to see them play some nice rugby, as basic as that sounds, and look like they're having fun and they've got a bit of flair about them and can trouble a backline, because we haven't looked like we could trouble a backline for quite a while. So it would be nice to just see a bit of threat in our attacking play, and obviously to some parity up front. But not sure about that. But yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So going on to selection, we won't do a full team because I do think a lot of players pick themselves really. But a couple of questions for you. First of all, does Teddy Williams come in to start, and is that at the expense of um, Will Rowlands or David Jenkins or Freddie Thomas? Does David Jenkins, if he's fit, does he come back in as well? Who's your back row? And then your 10. So I did make a comment on a post when someone was talking about Jared at 10, and I did say Jared at 10 is going to mean that a lot of points are going to be scored. I can't tell you which team is going to score them all, but many points will be scored one way or the other. And then the last question is Jockey too bitten by the 6-2 now after yet another catastrophic backfire? Are we going to get a boring 5-3, or do you think he will try 6-2 just purely because I think Ireland, you almost want a few extra forwards in there?
I asked the question about the back five forwards on Twitter today because I was randomly thinking about it in work, and like there's quite good options there. It sort of depends on exactly what you're trying to get out of your second rows, I guess. I wouldn't start Rowlands. I've seen enough now, to be honest. Like through the autumn, he wasn't great. He was in Last Chance Saloon. It hasn't really worked in the first 2 weeks either. He's 33, 34, somewhere around there now. Like I think that is probably done. Dav Jenkins definitely starts. I still think there's more than enough quality there. And then obviously with that Cardiff glasses on, I think Teddy Williams is the guy next to him. But I'd really consider Freddie Thomas in the 6 jersey this weekend. I think both of them has been playing really well. Jack Morgan's been playing well. They're quite a good duo. But I just think for the sake of the team as a whole and to give us just a bit of extra size in there, just seeing what that does against Ireland, because the last few years we generally tried the sort of not both of them's not a second seven, but the sort of 6.5/7 thing. We've had Ellis Jenkins and Basham together. We've had Jack at 6 and then Tipperick together. It was Alex Mann and Reffel 6 and 7 for the Ireland game last year, which obviously, Mann there was a lot of injuries and stuff. He wouldn't normally have been there, but he's again another sort of 6.5-ish kind of guy, particularly at the time where he was distinctly lighter than he is now. And I think the plan is always, try and make a lot of tackles, get over the ball. It's just not possible against Ireland. You just can't turn them over consistently. They leaving aside the sort of snipes about going off their feet, but they're very effective in terms of coming onto the ball, the different shapes that they show, getting over the game line. It's very difficult to consistently get the jackal in there. So I wonder, maybe we try this time. Freddie Thomas going in, still pretty mobile. He's still quick for a big guy. I think he's deceptively quick. But
he's also one of our smaller second rows.
Yeah, exactly.
I think he's only like 6'4", 6'5".
6'4". He's 6'4", probably about 100, somewhere 116, 117 kg. But he is bigger than James Botham. So do you really try and lay into that? Let's meet them at the game line. Try and hold them up, slow them down that way. You can punch a few more holes, and then does that allow then, even though player for player, I would say Botham's a better rugby player than Thomas, but does having somebody like him in the 6 jersey open it up then for Jack Morgan and Wainwright/Faletau, whoever you're picking at 8, to do more of their flashy stuff? Jack Morgan doesn't need to go and make 30 tackles and try and bust out 15 carries in the middle of the pitch a bit more. He can concentrate a bit more on the jackal when it's there. He doesn't have to make so many tackles. He can slide into the wider channels a little bit more where he can show off his pace and beat a few men. That would be my thinking with that selection. I don't necessarily predict it. I think it'll probably still be both them, Morgan and one of Wainwright and Faletau. But I'd just like to see us do something different than what we've done the last few years against Ireland with very little to no reward.
I'd like to add one other point is the Ireland lineup is pretty shaky at best. I mean, it might be improved with the enforced introduction of Peter O'Mahony, but actually having Freddie Thomas, who's a bit taller and a bit more of a natural lineup forward, should help as well, because then you've got, in theory, whether you go for Faletau or Wainwright, you've got two players who are very good lineup, whereas both of them is sort of more of an emergency front jumper for me.
Yeah.
He's not a out and out, and I think Teddy Williams is actually coming in as well, because his defensive lineup work's been excellent this season. It's been flagged by quite a few people. So that's my backup for that. My one thing is I just going full blue and black and going for both of them.
I do like him off the bench
at
at Test match. I do like him off the bench at Test match level. They're both of them. Like in the autumn, like he was really good making that impact. That's what he deserved to start at the Six Nations. Like there's no issue with that. But I think he is. It doesn't dim his effectiveness much by switching him into that 20 jersey or 21 if you go in 6-2. Like, and you know, it's the old cliche of finishers and all that now, but it is like a real key position, the bench these days, isn't it? So like, having somebody like him where you can just say to Freddie, look, give us 60 minutes of hitting everything, holding everything up, like get as much attacking work as you've done. Game opens up a bit, and then you bring both of them on to try and take advantage of that. There's quite a nice balance to that for me, but yeah, that I think that would be a really brave call for Jockey to come in and make in his first game to sort of go with a totally new. You know, Wales have rarely picked that really big monster of a six, despite Gatlin claiming that's what he wants.
Well, I think he's picked it. He keeps picking it, and you know, whether it's been a Seb Davis or Chunza or Plumtree, and it's just never really worked.
Yeah,
because I think the people who's picked that big monster six Courtney Laws role aren't Courtney Laws, which is because what I think the thing people, you know, there's always talk about the destructive carrying. What I think people don't realize with Courtney Laws is just how low he could get for such a tall guy, and just how how much he could just absolutely size players down, which just meant if you're the seven going in to get a turnover, you've basically got a clear run because the support just don't have time to do anything. Fraser, do you want to go talk us through? You sort of mentioned the love of Jared at 10, so we'll hold that one for a bit. Do you want to discuss pros and cons 6-2, 5-3 bench?
I think for me, against Ireland, yeah, I think a 6-2 bench is kind of a necessity. I feel like I don't think we get away with a 5-3, and we'd be vulnerable in the last, half an hour, 20 minutes if we didn't have those replacements on the bench. So I think it's a no-brainer going for a 6-2. And obviously Jockey went for a 6-2 against Connaught. They're an Irish team. Who knows? But yeah, I think I would probably push that as an option. And yeah, I haven't had much consideration for the 5-3, to be honest. I don't think it's. I don't know what you guys think in terms of what that would add, apart from obviously a bit more flexibility in the back line. But I think we need that bulky Pap, or as bulky as we can get, and to combat the strength of the Ireland forward pack.
So sort of flip this around, because we could probably easily work out who'd be our replacement backs and forwards for 5-3. For 6-2, how would you split that? So obviously you'd have to have your front row, and then would you go 2 second rows or a second row 6 hybrid and then Rethel? Or would you have the other one, a Faletau or Wainwright? How would you balance that pack, and then who would your backs be?
I
Trying
think
to make sure that you cover all bases.
Yeah, I would definitely have Faletau or Wainwright on the bench, because I mean Wainwright was unbelievable obviously he was only on for 10 minutes or so against Italy, but he was like very much a difference maker, and obviously Faletau is Faletau, so I think you need to have one of those players on because they are our X Factor players. In terms of, I think probably a second row in there, so Freddie Thomas covering the line out, and then in terms of the kind of backs, would go for, I think you are obviously Ellis, actually probably Roddy Williams, or maybe Ellis Bevan. That's a question whether Jockey will go for the Cardiff backed Bevan or go with Roger Williams, he's kind of had that slot on the bench. And then in terms of the kind of versatile back again, it depends who's starting, whether Blair Murray's on the pitch. I imagine he will be. But if not, I guess, yeah, it's a tricky one in terms of whether they go for Anscombe kind of can cover some positions. But yeah, I'm not sure in terms of exactly who would be. I haven't really thought it through, but yeah, I think definitely one of Wainwright and Faletau as the 8 replacement. But yeah, as opposed to that, I'm kind of still wondering on that.
Dan, any thoughts on that? As you sort of have a rough idea of the squad you'd play your full 15
Yeah,
and 23.
like if that was my if they did go, if I was called up by Jockey to select the team, and it was Teddy, Jenkins, Thomas, Morgan, and one of Wainwright or Faletau. I'm not really. I don't have a really strong opinion on the 8 jersey, to be honest. But one of those two, I would then, with a 6-2, not have a second row on the bench and just use Freddie Thomas as my second row cover, and then have both them, Reffel and the other one of Wainwright and Faletau, on the bench to come on as a sort of back row bomb squad. But yeah, I think I think most likely it will probably be Jenkins, one of Teddy or Thomas as his second row partner, and then both them, Morgan and one of the 8s. So then you'd have the other one of Teddy and Thomas on the bench, Reffel, and then the other one of Wainwright and Faletau then is your 6-2 there. Which I think that works pretty well. I'd then go Bevan as my 9 in a 6-2 because I think he'd be a better like emergency winger option than Roddy Williams would be. And then my outside back would probably be Eddie James, assuming that the starting back line is one of the 10s. Then it's Thomas, Llewellyn, Murray, Adams, Rogers. I think with Eddie James there, then you've got Thomas can cover 10 if he needs to, step in from 12. Llewellyn can go to the wing if he needs to. So you could bring Eddie James on either 12 or 13 then. And then if there was like a full back going off, you could potentially reshuffle the whole thing and push Llewellyn wide and Murray back, or you could just drop Ben Thomas straight back into 15 and bring Eddie James on at 12. So I think this time around there's enough with Llewellyn in the squad now being able to cover centre and wing. There is enough versatility to make 6-2 work properly, and that's what I would go for. I think if we're going to stand any chance of getting something out of this game, we're going to have a huge pack performance for 80 minutes, and bringing 6 subs on to help with that is pretty much the only way we're going to get that. I think if we go 5-3, it could fall off a cliff quite quickly after 60 minutes, and Ireland could pull away with that.
It's interesting because we've had 2 different answers there, really, with sort of pack fairly similar. I'm going to have a completely different opinion again. So for me, my outside, the backs have been, I'd probably go with Bevan, to be fair. Again, we can cover, but I'd probably go Roberts at 30 as your 13, because I feel like 13's the hard. I basically looked at which position's the hardest one to cover. I feel like 9's, I mean, we kind of have pretty much always have a spare scrum half, so 9's easy. And I agree, Bevan could do a job on the wing. I think he's got the pace for it, and he's decent enough in the aerial game. But again, with Llewellyn being able to push out, that's fine. My big worry was always that they might try and do Josh Adams at 13 again, and we got away with it against Italy. I don't want to see that happen again. So I said I'd probably go Joe Roberts. And then I think it's important, if you are going 6-2, I think you need to have second row cover. And I don't think it's a 6 who's been tackling his arse off all day going into the engine room, because I think enough position scrum will munch that up. Quite like I've come round to the because I was thinking either Botham Morgan, Faletau, or Faletau / Wainwright, or having Wainwright at 6 and then having him drop back to 8 if needed. I'm actually coming around to the Freddie Thomas at 6, which does mean for me then I think you've got to have at least Chunza on the bench, or potentially Rowlands, which I know he hasn't been impressive, but maybe say all you've got to do, go for a full French effort. You just got 20 minutes off the bench. That's it. And then you can go back to your croissants and red wine or whatever you fed at Racing.
Yes,
talking about pulling players from a losing environment. They lost to Van at home on the. No, that is embarrassing. Even Edinburgh can beat Van.
Oh yeah, and he played as well. Oh yeah, that's really down hard.
Yeah, maybe just give him just say come back when you play. Like go down to the Pro League there. I'm sure you'll find a team that can win games. So now if he stays at Racing, he might end up in the Pro League there. I wouldn't bet on them winning the access game at the moment. Yeah, so I'd probably go with that. Maybe just base Chunza. I don't know how he performed off the bench again in Prem Cup. I'll be honest, I think of that as, for me, the Prem Cup same sort of level as the Super Rugby Cymru Cup. To be honest, it's just not worth. Like someone wins at the end, I wouldn't worry about it.
He only had eight
but
minutes.
That's how I go. I probably wouldn't put Raffle on. I'd say Botham's good enough cover at 7. So whether I'm starting him or putting him on the bench, just because the problem I find with Raffle is I do think he is very much a one-trick pony. He does that trick very, very well. But as we sort of said, you can't really turn. Ireland's such a hard team to turn over. I'd rather people who chop people down and actually make yards when we do have the ball, because I do think we're going to need the ball to keep a lot more of the ball than perhaps we have been playing under Gatland, even if sometimes we are going backwards for a few phases, just to have any chance. But that's my thought, and I feel like there are better back rowers who can add more to the attack, whether they line up forwards or they've got better hands or they're decent in the first phase carrier. That's my thing. Don't think anyone's got any comments about this game. Do we want to do predictions? I'm quite happy to say no. So that leaves me for any other business of the Cardiff, Wales, or whatever.
Don't think so.
Mm-hmm. I suppose one other thing is they talk with the whole Jockey coming up to Wales coach. Cuthbert seems to think that the WRU might want him full term. Can we just give a pod's opinion on that? My personal opinion is no, fuck off, or pay us many monies. I don't know if we want to do an official pod response to that potential nasty rumor.
I don't think they're doing that. I think they've specifically got Sheraton for the stuff he's done with Cardiff and kind of bringing a team up from backs against the wall, that kind of motivational side of things, and just working in a crisis. I don't think they would offer him the full position. I don't think they're going to. But I would tell them to fuck off if they did. But I don't think they're going to do that. I for once, I trust WAU to make a good decision. But yeah.
Any advance, Dan?
I think the next 3 games would have to go like mind-bogglingly well. We'd have to, if we win the Triple Crown, then I can get on board with it. But honestly, that is so unlikely to happen.
But also pay us many monies.
If he wins Triple Crown, that they can have him for free, and I'll drive him up myself. That's how confident Wales are not going to win the Triple Crown.
That's the pod headline for the pod. Right there you go. Yeah.
Wales are crap, says Dan. Wales will never win again. Right. So yes, the pod official position is, unless he wins the Triple Crown, fuck off, WRU. We're keeping him. And all that's left for me to say is thank you, Dan. Thank you, Fraser, as ever, for joining me in our ramblings, and thank you all for listening and going through with it. Ta-ra.